Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. We're at the Modern Retreat and I wanted to do a video just kind of bringing you up to speed and talk about some of the mistakes I've made, some of the things I've learned, and just some general knowledge about the whole process of a trim package going into a house on a custom modern home like this. One of the unique things about this particular job was I had to start the job and the interior doors were not here. Whenever we typically try to get ahead of ordering the trim package and the doors at least 4, if not 6 weeks in advance from the time when I'm actually going to start the job, it ended up being that these interior doors were a 10-week lead time. So what that meant was I had to do all of my custom details first, and now we're at basically the last fourth of the job. Our doors just got here this morning, they just got delivered, and it's time to start putting those in. So we've all been dealing with the construction industry, delays and lead times, and it gets pretty ridiculous. The reason these particular doors took so long, they were quote unquote custom. So we wanted to order a door that had this modern detail, which is basically a flat slab with a couple of dados running through it. Gives it a really nice look. There was some back and forth. If money was no option, we would have tried to get all of this millwork in walnut. Unfortunately, the price was going to be pretty redonkulous to get all of this trim done in walnut. We ended up opting for poplar. So these will be stained. I think they're going to look great, but that did cause us to have a 10-week lead time. So our lumber yard just dropped these off. I'm getting ready to start putting them in, but I wanted to give you kind of an update on the rest of the house and show you some things that we do in this whole process. One of the things I wanted to highlight a little bit was on a lot of these higher end custom homes, we're getting requests for epoxy floors. So as you can see, we've got a beautiful epoxy floor down, but you can't see it because it's covered in house wrap. It's always a question of, do you put the epoxy floor in early on in the job process, or do you wait until the very end? If you wait until the very end, it can be difficult because you've got a ton of different sub-trades going in and trying to get work done. The advantage is it'll probably stay cleaner if you put it in at the very end, but then whenever we've done that in the past, it means I also have to go in at the very end of the job and try to install the baseboard later on. So what we've done here, we had a window of opportunity to get this floor installed, and I was able to go ahead and get my baseboard installed directly over the epoxy floor. You get a much better finished product, in my opinion, whenever you do that. So it's something to consider if you're building a home. You can get this epoxy in, midway through the job, which will allow us to actually install the trim directly over the epoxy. But then the disadvantage is you could potentially damage the floor, get it dirty, etc. Now, the epoxy flooring companies will tell you that there's absolutely nothing that will hurt their floors, so on and so forth. It's really more of an issue of cleanliness, which is why we went ahead and put this house wrap down on the floor right here. So hopefully we can keep it a little bit cleaner, protect it a little bit more. But I do like, whenever we do have these epoxy floor situations, I like to be able to get the baseboard installed over the top of it before paint. It's just gonna finish up a little bit nicer. One of the other reasons I like getting the epoxy in early before my trim is in situations like this. I've got these interior doors that need to be installed. Also, a lot of times you'll have a garage step that has to be installed to go into your house. With the epoxy being in already, I'll be able to basically bring my jambs and door casing down directly onto the epoxy. If you don't do that, they will have to try to run their epoxy right up to your door jamb and your door casing. It just doesn't turn out very good. And if you ever decide to change your door jamb, door casing, garage step, you could potentially end up with a gap where you have unfinished concrete versus epoxy. So let me know how you guys do it in the comments. I'm curious, those of you who are builders, when you do your epoxy floors in your process. We just came in from the garage, and this is gonna be our locker unit area with some built-ins. You'll see here this crazy plywood wall. We're gonna have a video later on about this installation, but this is a modern slat wall. I talked about this detail in the Lamello Zeta review video that I did. We're gonna have slats installed on here. So one thing I wanted to point out before you see the finished product later on, we've got all these slots. This is raw plywood, it's gotta be painted. I did have a couple guys comment that, hey, what if these slots get filled with paint? And what I'm gonna do is actually tape these off with 3/8 inch wide masking tape to ensure that that doesn't happen. I actually had one guy tell me he learned the hard way that you need to do that. So I wanted to point that out. We're gonna get these slots covered prior to paint, and then we'll install our pre-finished wood material on top of that later, so hopefully we don't have any issues. The one thing, I do read all of the comments, at least I try to get through all of the comments on my videos, and a lot of times I do learn quite a bit whenever I read those comments. The way we approach these curved trays, if you haven't seen that video, be sure to check that out. But I installed this stained grade wood trim around all these curved trays in place. I got probably a dozen or so comments like, hey, you should have done that in the shop, build those boxes in the shop, and then bring them to the job site and install them. I actually think that was really sound advice. I wasn't really in the loop on this job with these curved trays in advance enough to catch that and tell the framer, hey, don't do anything, I'll build those in the shop. But if we ever do this type of detail again, I will definitely try to build these on the shop. Being able to just make a template and build these on the workbench would have been a lot easier and would probably also yield a more crisp, better result. So thanks for the comments, I appreciate it. I do read those, and I think in this case, if I did it again, I would try to build these in the shop. Whenever we did the introduction video for this job, we talked about this situation right here where we had a 6x6 post that was severely twisted and bowed. I'm super happy with how this turned out. I was dreading trying to execute this detail, but I think it's a very modern house. It's got unique style characteristics, and the way this all actually turned out, I think it's really cool. The rabbit details and everything we did, I'm just really happy with it. So a lot of times we have unideal circumstances to work with, but it can still end up turning out into a good thing. Now over here, I wanted to point out some of the details that you don't see in real life, on social media, so on and so forth, but we have to deal with in real life on the job site. And with these waterfalls, way in advance, the company that makes these sent specifications on the size and whatnot, and unfortunately, we had the framer frame in these boxes underneath. Whenever you do that, typically your framer is just not gonna be as precise as a finished carpenter. These boxes are gonna get wrapped in steel, and as you can see here, we ended up with the box overhanging. They're further out than the actual waterfall unit itself. So the steel fabricator is gonna have his work kind of cut out for him to make up for that. It's not gonna be a big deal. We're gonna be able to deal with it fine, but that's something where I probably should have built these in advance, but time, money, it all costs stuff, so it was probably a lot more inexpensive having the framer do it, but you get what you pay for, I guess. Now, this was something crazy. Again, the Waterfall company sent specifications on the electrical outlet that was required for this pump and where it needed to be. In the bottom of this unit, you can see there was a cutout made for an electrical outlet. The electrician put it in, and unfortunately, it's directly under all of the plumbing for the pump, and there's no real way to remove any of this piping to get access to that electrical outlet. So I'm not sure what the solution will end up being to fix this, but this is the kind of stuff that you deal with in building custom homes. It's always something. You can't anticipate everything, and it's just a matter of just constantly solving problems that present themselves as you go along. One tip that I wanted to give you guys is to order extra material whenever you're doing stain grade work. In this situation, I had this huge wall of wainscoting. It's all gonna be stain grade, it's gonna be poplar, but as you know, with poplar, you do get some varying colors with the different wood. Now, I had to order 4-quarter thickness for this front side, and basically we ordered exactly the amount of material that I was gonna need. This means you don't have very much in terms of options for selecting boards and color matching. So as you see here, we've got, whenever you have a really tall 20-foot wall, you're gonna have to join some pieces together, and that can mean you have some color variation. I wasn't very happy with how this turned out. I mean, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll stain up okay, but the way I had to build this, because it was 20 foot tall, I pre-assembled that top panel, and then this basically bottom panel I inserted up in here, and we've got some color variation. I also wasn't thrilled with the fact that I've got a joint here and here, but that's just kind of the way I had to build it. I wanted to show that because I want to not just show the glorious, good-looking parts of carpentry. I want to show you the real kind of choices that I have to make throughout the day to try and make things look good, and sometimes things don't turn out quite as good as I would like. It's fine, but for my OCD, I wish I would have had some boards that were a little bit closer matching in color. Let me know what you guys think of this video. I'm getting ready to start popping in these doors. Our next video is gonna be on installing stain grade split jamb doors. Yes, I said it, we're doing stain grade split jamb doors. These are gonna be interesting. I've never installed stain grade split jamb doors, but yeah, it's gonna be a cool video. We're gonna talk about why I opted to have them be split jambs and show you some of the nuances of installing stain grade doors and casing. So be sure to check out that video. I'm gonna get to work. Appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you on the next one.